Hello, and welcome to the JCPS MTSS Toolkit on Formative Assessment. Here we're going to highlight reciprocal teaching. I am Matt Traskis, an MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher for the High School Zone.
And I'm Amy Downs, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with Elementary Zone 2. Welcome to this training where we are going to dive into fostering acceleration using the high yield practice reciprocal teaching through formative assessment. Please take a moment and write down or type the case-sensitive bit.ly into your web browser, which is bit.ly/reciprocal teaching formative assessment. This will allow you to access the slide deck and all the links for future reference. Here you see the components of the multi-tiered systems of support, also known as MTSS. As you can see, the multiple levels of support which MTSS provides for all learners easily aligns with our district's 6 systems for students. MTSS addresses academic, social, emotional, and behavioral development. It focuses on overall school improvement that is sustainable. This presentation encompasses several components, but most notably teacher support through resources that can be used to accelerate student learning, to be used during instruction, as well as during teacher professional development. Here is a concept map that shows a visual of the departments in JCPS within MTSS. The MTSS Academic Department provides teachers with Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention and academic support. This department is led by Donna Lawson. The MTSS Behavior Department, led by Sandra Hensel, supports schools in implementing school-wide behavior systems and frameworks, which includes PBIS and restorative practices. The MTSS Re-Engagement Department supports students who are transitioning back to their home schools from alternative settings. The goal of our department, which is the MTSS Engagement Department, is to increase student achievement by equipping students with high-yield pedagogical practices to maximize student engagement. Both the MTSS Engagement and the Re-Engagement Departments are led by Dr. Naomi Brahim. The point of contact for each department is located in the concept map. There were 6 MTSS toolkits that were created to provide resources for Tier 1 instructional practices to increase student engagement and reduce student behaviors. Here are the 6 MTSS toolkits. The website is linked on the image. This presentation was created to aid teachers in engaging their students after having an extended break from the classroom for any reason. In order for teachers to meet students where they are currently and begin planning lessons, formative assessment should be given to develop a baseline of understanding. Reciprocal teaching can be used as a formative assessment to make students' knowledge visible and to allow teachers to effectively accelerate student learning. It would be a daunting, albeit impossible task for teachers to pre-assess all students after an extended break. However, creating a student-centered environment in the classroom or virtual space is possible. Instead of going backwards to fill in potential gaps of understanding, start with grade-level content that would require prerequisite knowledge, and through formative assessments, allow students to guide you to the gaps in their understandings. This gives you the ability to scaffold instruction appropriately, and it removes the barriers to obtaining new knowledge. For this presentation, we will dive deeper into the high-yield practice of reciprocal teaching as a means to engage students through acceleration. Our learning intention today is investigating the high-yield practice reciprocal teaching and reflecting on how this strategy can be used to formatively assess and re-engage students. The success criteria for this presentation is the student seeing the acceleration in the student comprehension of content when multiple formative assessments are used, as well as reflecting on how you, as the teacher, can use this practice to gather and implement formative assessment data. So what is reciprocal teaching? Reciprocal teaching is a metacognitive strategy in which students are placed into the role of the teacher. Students are challenged to summarize content for other students in a small group. The goal is for students to actively take control of their own learning and thinking. In reviewing meta-analysis, Dr. John Hattie found that this practice of reciprocal teaching has a very high effect size of 0.74. Considering any practice which equals a typical year's growth would have an effect size of 0.40, this strategy is almost double that and is very useful for accelerating learning. Formative assessment is an active, ongoing process that occurs between teachers and students. Sometimes the teacher uses this technique to determine where students are in relation to a learning goal. However, formative assessment is far more effective when it is used as a means to give feedback to students, giving them their current progress and as an insight on how to obtain their goal. In providing effective formative assessment, teachers utilize the students as a part of the process by allowing them to fully demonstrate their mastery of content. Then teachers make decisions based upon this knowledge to plan the scaffolds and next steps. Finally, they take action on these steps and allow the process to continue and accelerate students to the intended goal. Please take a moment to review this concept map. In this concept map, the entire process of formative assessment is shown. Notice how the process moves from one level to the next. In the next few moments, we are going to watch a video on reciprocal teaching. During this video, notice how the teacher was able to determine proficiency and use it seamlessly for next steps. This is the arrow highlighted in red. This step of action after assessment is often overlooked, but it is the most critical. Here is a 5-minute video using reciprocal teaching in a language arts middle school classroom. Although the setting is different, the strategy is still the same.
We're going to predict what this piece of text is going to be about. So it's called Discovering the Terracotta Warriors. Okay, use the title and what we already know. Who can predict what we might read about?
Yep. The way he lived his life. It could be about his enemies and like the people who hated him the most.
Okay, yep. Rebecca?
People who tried to kill him and that he might have went somewhere else.
Okay, because we know that the Terracotta Warriors protected him and his tomb. So we know that he's died, so we're going to find out about that, you think? Okay. Anyone else got a different prediction? Were there any words in there that you weren't sure of, or any sentences that just you weren't quite sure why they were there or what they meant? Hayley?
Musician or something.
Musician, okay. Does anyone know what a musician is?
It's a person who plays an instrument.
Does that make sense? Okay. Anyone else got another word that they'd like to clarify? Nathan?
The Ziyang thing.
The Jiayang, I think. Okay. How would we find out what that is? Let's read just a little bit before it. It says, by taking the emperor back to Jiayang in his carriage. What do you think that might be? Bonnie?
A place.
A place, yeah. Okay, so even though we're not quite sure how to say it, the words around us tell us it's a place. Okay, great. Any other words that we wanted to clarify?
Alexa.
Alexa, okay. Now notice that it's in bold. There's a place in this book that we can go to find out what that is. What is it?
Glossary.
Yeah, the glossary. Okay, so it's at the start of this chapter. So just flick back a couple of pages and look up Alexa. Can you read it out, Bonnie?
A medicine believed to prolong life.
So it was a medicine that they took in the hope that they would live longer. Does that make sense? Why do you think he was taking the elixir? Okay, we're going to move into question generating. Now remember, we've got 3 levels of questions. So our first level is the literal. Right there on the page, you can find the answer to the question by looking back at the text. Then we've got our inferential. Now this is where you have to use what you know already, and you guys know quite a bit. Plus, you can use what's written down and make the connections between it. But it doesn't tell you exactly what the answer is. And then the third level, the evaluative level, where you have to basically think on your own. So you have to use all the things that you know and make a judgment. Okay, and you're all very good about having an opinion and backing it up. Okay, so that's that level, and that's where we get to debate with each other. Okay, Caitlin.
How did they cover up his death?
Okay, how do they cover up his death? Does anyone have a response to that one?
They put a load of fish on it, and it got rid of the decaying emperor smell.
Okay, covered up the smell, didn't it? Okay, great. Now that was a literal level question. Okay guys, the question starts, why does? Have a look at the text. Think of a question that begins, why does?
Well, I've got, why does Shi Huangdi move around his palace?
Okay, why does Shi Huangdi move around the palace? Who's got an answer to that? Okay, can you give us the answer?
Well, he moved around because he was too afraid of being killed by people.
So that was an inferential question. So we had to go back to the text and we had to read between the lines. We had to think about what we already know about ancient China, and we had to use what was here in the text as well. But it didn't tell us exactly the answer, did it? We had to think on our own. Okay? Great answer. So let's have a go at some evaluative questions. My question for you is, we've already talked about how they covered up the emperor's death by using the fish and making the smell. We've talked about why they did that. What I want to know now is, why was it so important that the people didn't know that Shi Huangdi had died?
Because people might start wars, and that'd be bad.
Okay, so fighting over the land. Okay. Let's move on to summarising. Would anyone like to summarise what we've just read?
Well, basically what we just read was how he died and how they covered up his death, and in 1974 how they found something amazing with his tomb.
For another great video on reciprocal teaching, especially in the social studies classroom, please click this link over here. The setting is a more urban public school setting in which we might be more familiar.
We're going to predict.
Please pause the video here and take a moment to reflect on the following questions. How is the teacher able to formatively assess her students during reciprocal teaching? Remember, gaining a baseline to monitor and adjust teaching is a main goal. How do students benefit from hearing their group members thinking? What other scaffolds or supports would you need to have in place prior for this practice to work with your students? As you are watching the video, you may have seen other important practices that also accelerate student learning. The teacher scaffolded instruction through questioning, prompts, cues, or even reteach moments. Students were able to connect socially in a small group. The students were also receiving immediate feedback from their teacher. And although not shown, a rubric might have been used to collect data and monitor student progress. Here's an example of one rubric that can be used to monitor progress. Regardless of the skill or subject, a well-utilized rubric allows the teacher to immediately and give focused feedback. This example shows reading comprehension and can be used multiple times to display student progress on a long continuum. The use of rubrics is important as students and teachers have a clear record of where they are in their learning and where they still need to go. Even without the use of a rubric, formative assessment through reciprocal teaching can be done in both the virtual and regular classroom. By simply creating small learning groups, teachers give timely feedback to students that is both specific and helpful. This feedback allows them to monitor and adjust their lessons for the specific needs of their students. Reciprocal teaching connects directly to acceleration through many aspects, but most notably through the practice's ability to identify and support students quickly in their learning. Through the use of reciprocal teaching, teachers are able to meet students where they are, make learning relevant to them, and monitor their progress through support and meaningful feedback. This close, hands-on approach to teaching and learning allows for more positive interactions in the classroom and better student-teacher relationships. In any classroom, the teacher should be aware of certain considerations regarding the environment or learning community that they are trying to create. Knowing the backgrounds or cultural norms for students within the classroom will lead to more engaging and effective instructional practice. This culturally responsive approach should be utilized to reach as many students as possible in the classroom. And as with any high-yield practice, there are several other considerations. When using reciprocal teaching, several culturally responsive considerations can be noted, including keeping students aware of their learning goal and their progress towards that goal. Where ECE students are present, some aspects of reciprocal teaching should be utilized more often in that classroom, based upon the needs of the learners there. The use of rubrics is crucial in these classrooms for both appropriate documentation for the teachers and the self-monitoring for the students. Clarity of intentions and success lead to more robust projects and greater understanding of the content for students. By dividing students into small groups, cooperative learning is put to use. Projects that help students to collaborate, think critically, innovate, or become more culturally competent can also be used for backpack artifacts. For those who wish to learn more about the practice of reciprocal teaching, here are some excellent resources that you might find helpful in how to establish the norms of reciprocal teaching for your own personal classroom. Thank you for joining us to learn more about reciprocal teaching as a type of formative assessment in both the virtual and traditional classroom. For more helpful information about the MTSS toolkits and other high-yield practices, please visit our website.